Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm José.
And we've just been to see Babygirl. An erotic, romantic, odd drama, maybe has thriller elements. I was really thrilled when I saw the BBFC logo at the start with the rating 18. I thought, yes, I love a fucking 18. Right? And it said, and you know they put under the thing, it always says like nudity, swearing, shit like that. All it said was strong sex. Like that's how they summed it up. I thought, fuck yes. And then I found myself kind of disappointed. Like I wanted it to be so much hornier in a way.
It's a very disappointing film.
I feel it's disappointing, though I think it's interesting, at least superficially. I wonder whether it just doesn't kind of have as much depth as you might want from it.
Yeah, I didn't find it that interesting.
So Nicole Kidman plays this CEO of a company that uses... You've seen like Amazon warehouses where the robots have those tracks and then it's just all these massive warehouses full of robots. That's what she runs, that kind of company. High-powered CEO type. She's married to Antonio Banderas, who's a theatre director. They've got 2 teenage daughters. And they have a sex life that she's not that happy with. She doesn't get out of it what he gets out of it. He doesn't obviously know that. We get that from the start. A new batch of interns arrives at her company. And one of them, this guy played by Harris Dickinson, who you were just saying you recognise from a bunch of stuff. I've seen in a bunch of stuff, but don't recognise him. He's tall, he's opinionated, he's immediately speaking to her like someone he's
Very self-assured.
Yeah, I mean, like you wouldn't speak to the fucking CEO like that. You'd be cowed, but he's not, and he makes an impression. And before you know it, they begin an affair in which it's very BDSM toned, and he takes the lead all the time. He makes her do things. It's never non-consensual. That's the big thing brought up in the film at one point is the idea of consent. But he's very much the one in charge, and you get this thing which I think the film needed to play more heavily on. Of she is supposed to be this high-powered CEO type, but in her sexual fantasies, she is the one who needs to be told what to do. That's what she wants. That's what she fantasizes about. That's what she needs. And I think, and while that second part is absolutely clear, we see it throughout the film. I kind of feel like I needed more. I needed to believe more in how she became the CEO she became. Like she talks early on about how she started her company, and she told the interviewers to fuck themselves, and that's why she got hired, because she had that kind of personality. I'm thinking, okay, you've told me that. I didn't actually feel it from the character, like how she got to where she is, and therefore the kind of the strength of the difference between that and who she is in her sexual life, who she fantasizes about being in her sexual life. Your thoughts?
I didn't like any of it. I mean, Nicole Kidman is great, and I suppose there are things that the film handles well. Yeah, that moment that you just mentioned when he comes into the office and kind of there's a transition between like this jokey assertiveness that could go either way, and then the way that she falls into that kind of relationship is nicely handled. But I want a film of this kind to have real threat, right? And I never felt that it had. So to me, it didn't have a real threat. It didn't have an erotic release, right? Like you actually saw very little sex, though I suppose defined sex. Yeah, a lot of the transactions in the film and the interactions were about power play, in the sense, get on your knees and drink this bowl of milk like, a bitch or something. But, I think even in those power plays, there has to be like an erotic release. Yeah, it has to turn her on somehow. And I didn't feel that was communicated kind of very well to me. And it wasn't communicated. So you do have a couple of scenes where she orgasms, but actually you never see what's in it for him. You don't see the release for him, right? And so within all this talk of mutuality and consent and, risk and danger, I thought it was really both tame, kind of not really well explained, with the element of sex and desire and release and danger and humor all lacking.
I feel like I feel like the intern character is supposed to be a kind of like anonymous agent of change type. I mean, it's only towards the end of the film, I think, that we first hear his name because someone says it or you see it on a phone. And I went, I didn't think I knew his name until that point. You know, he's just this intern, right? And you know, he kind of reminded me of, or the character type kind of reminded me of Terence Stamp in Teorema. You know, the kind of the stranger. I've come here to ruin your family. You know, by opening your sexual. You know, and I think that's kind of the idea. But then, as you say, he's not anonymous.
You say to ruin your family because you know the way that I remember Teorema is he comes there to please the whole family.
Sexual and all their lives change. Yeah, but you know what I mean. It's that type of like this kind of this sexual agent just shows up, which is certainly what's going on at least from the start here. But as you say, he's either not anonymous enough for that. We do get things about his feelings, but then we don't get enough. You know, there's that scene in the car when he shows up at her house and then she tells him off for turning up, and he's different all of a sudden. You know, he's for one thing, he's not the one in charge there. He's locked in the car by her, and that's quite conspicuous. Let me out. She won't. It's like for the first time, she's the one making the rules. You know, not doing as he says. And he's quite childlike in that scene. I mean, it's an interesting character transition, but then it's the only kind of interesting character moment for him. So like the film is kind of not. It's neither gone all the way down the kind of archetype route of the face of a stranger who has sex with you and changes your life. Neither has it gone down the route of we really have to get to know this guy just like we're getting to know her.
You know very little about him, really. I mean, you don't know who he is, where he comes from, what his background is, and then, you know, kind of there, I suppose, suggestions in his tattoos, you know, and his other job, you know, that he's kind of a lower class person. But then there are also kind of these other developments that don't quite make sense to me. So, you know, he's clearly told his other girlfriend all about it, and the other girlfriend uses as leverage for her career. And like, kind of, I just kind of thought that those are things that kind of moved away from the sexual dynamics of power and danger and consent and, you know, kind of boundary pushing. And there was certainly very little physical boundary pushing that you saw or that was even hinted at, really. So I found it all, you know, very unsatisfying and unbelievable, right? Like, I can't believe that, you know, her sexual frustration or lack of fulfillment would be a surprise after 19 years of marriage to a husband who's depicted as sensitive to her needs, right? I mean, surely he must have had a clue, like at some point earlier, right? Like, you know, because he's not depicted as an egomaniac, right? Like, you know, so I didn't find that believable.
Because they have an extremely healthy relationship outside the fact that she's not getting what she wants sexually.
Yeah,
you don't believe that they wouldn't have communicated this at some point.
I know, and actually, I think also, and this might just be my own view and my own prejudice, but you know, the film somehow makes it seem as if Nicole Kidman's sexual frustration is something that is extraordinary and makes her weird, right? Whereas, you know, after you've been with someone for 19 years, everybody has experienced moments of sexual frustration within their relationship, right? Kind of people change, sex changes, kind of, you know, people develop in different ways. I mean, you know, to me, kind of that would be the norm, really, rather than kind of, you know,
Yeah, although it is presented as more, rather than just frustration at, you know, a long-term relationship that has gone off the boil or whatever, it is presented as a more innate paraphilia of hers. You know, when she breaks down, she's trying to explain it to her husband towards the end, and she talks about like, having these thoughts since she was a kid. It's presented as as this has always been within me and I've never been able to say it, or whatever it was. And
Sure.
like, so I'm not saying that's great. It's not something the film sells really well, but it is what the film is telling you.
Yes, but you see, kind of, I mean, in a way I don't care, because I do think, I mean, people are so different, and, human sexuality is so extraordinary and unique, and so whatever the film would have wanted me, to believe, I would go for it. Yeah, it is, I think, within the potentiality of human sexuality to be almost anything, really. But I think, a better film would have shown you what that is, what the dangers are, what the releases are, what the pleasures are, right? Like, what the tensions are, what the contradictions are, the mixed kind of, I think we got very little, for example, of shame and terror, right? And kind of, all of those things would have been part of, the communication of something like this. And I think the film didn't hint at it at all for me.
Well, when it does anything like that, it's in dialogue, which is why it's so disappointing. So towards the end, and again, I think it's again in that scene where she's explaining to her husband, she says it's about danger. There has to be something at stake. And he then, I think that's kind of what turns him, because he goes, "What, you fucking put our marriage at stake for?" But you go, okay, right. So there has to be something at stake. Has to be danger. And what you're saying about, there's no feeling of threat. Like, that's supposed to be the feeling of threat that we get, that she's putting her
family,
her family, her career, everything is at risk. And you have kind of been told that every now and again. The intern character says every now and again that I could go and ruin your life with all this.
Yes.
But you never feel it, and it's only at the end when you go, okay, so I guess that is a thread, because she said it.
Yeah.
You didn't feel it. And it wasn't...
also, I mean, that's so unbelievable. Just because a lowly intern says to a top corporate executive, I have power over you because I'm fucking you. Like, come on. It's certainly not in keeping with all the other television shows and films and novels about corporate power, where they can get someone to chop you up and bury you in Bangkok without anyone knowing. Right?
This is why I don't believe her as a CEO, because I don't believe this woman just from the amount of personality we get from her. I don't see how she got to that position. I need to feel that more.
I think, it's very disappointing, because what I was hoping that the film would be, and I was open to it not being, necessarily good, but I thought it would be like, one of those talking points films that you saw, like in the 70s and 80s, where all of a sudden when the film would come out, and that week the topic of discussion would be, right, in this case it would be, I don't know, S&M, or older women having relationships with younger men, and a kind of a corporate setting and so on. And I just kind of felt that the film didn't open up kind of avenues audiovisually to kind of get you involved with any of it and with what's at stake in it. And on the other hand, I feel, well, maybe I'm not getting it. I mean, it's a film that's directed by a woman. There were like so many kind of women listed in the production. Kind of, maybe it's a particular type of female response and experience that I am just kind of not getting.
I mean, there may
but I don't get it.
There may be an element of that, but I think it's just not very good. I think it's other films are expressed. Even something like 50 Shades of Grey, I think got it better, because it was so in the realm of fantasy. This is actually trying to seem quite realistic, I think. Whereas that is like that's like that's fan fiction, right? I mean, it's Twilight fan fiction is how it started, 50 Shades of Grey. And I've not read the book. I saw the films. The first one I really liked. It was so much better than I thought it would be, and it was really steamy. This is not. I mean, and actually, I think. I mean, there are these extended sexual sequences in here, which aren't, as they're not quote unquote sex scenes, like as you say, but sex is a range of kind of activities. And the first one in that hotel room, I really liked, because there was so much potential, and also there's that class element in that you were saying about.
I didn't like it, and I think the reason why I didn't like it is because it's meant to be. It's a really interesting kind of premise, right? Because it is meant to be an older woman's desire, right? And kind of a desire for subjugation or humiliation, right? But it's sparked by this particular man, right? And usually it's the other way around, right? It's like a fantasy of male dominance over, a young, nubile woman.
Which is 50 Shades of Grey.
Okay. But I bet you in 50 Shades of Grey you have all these close-ups of her breasts or her ass or a curve in her body. Yeah, like she's made to seem, kind of...
I don't remember, to be honest. I remember thinking... it's always once since I've seen it. And it was directed by a woman. It was directed by Sam...
Taylor Wood.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm wrong.
And
I haven't seen it.
I remember thinking... God, he's so fucking sexy, and I want to see his cock so much. Like, I just thought, wow. I don't remember specifically how she was shot, but he is absolutely
the object of desire.
Object of desire.
Oh, I must see it then.
Yeah, you really got. It's a good, interesting film. The second and third, fuck them, because they go off the rails. But I was amazed the first one was on the rails, as long as it was. But no, that scene here where they're in that dirty hotel room, there is that class element you were saying about him being lower class, and she's there in kind of her upper class sort of CEO dress, and she points out, "You fucking got me here to this shitty hotel room," and he's wearing
hair from,
and he's wearing. I mean, we haven't, because we've only seen him at work before then. So he's been wearing suits, and he barges into the hotel room wearing a tracksuit that's half open and shitty trainers, and it's quite conspicuous. And then when you get to the scene where she winds up on the ground and he's fingering her, and the camera's right in her face, it's right down on the floor, and the carpet's there, and I noticed the shitty, horrible carpet. It's like, and it's quite kind of, it's pretty grungy. That scene had the one moment in the film I thought was really sexy, which was him getting her on all fours, and it's a shot. She's on the left and he's on the right, and we've seen right at the start of the film that he stopped this wild dog in the street from attacking someone, and immediately you're getting like he can just, with the snap of his fingers, he can control shit. Like it's right there from the start. And now he's treating her like a dog, and he gets that sweet in his hand, and he gets her to... Well, he doesn't even say anything, She just knows she crawls over and she eats it straight out of his hand. And I thought, fuck, that's sexy. But that's the only point where I thought, wow, steamy. Because, I was thinking of Megalopolis, the sex scene in Megalopolis, which comes out of nowhere. And I was thinking, Jesus, like, this is amazing. And that was on screen for about 40 seconds. And this is full of stuff that should be... like more erotic, more treacherous, more dangerous, all that kind of stuff, and it's not. I do though like Nicole Kidman's performance.
She's
throughout.
Great,
and it's. I mean, she probably, would you say she has a reputation for performances that people would call brave?
Yes. Well, she goes completely out there. I mean, I think what she does with her body. I mean, it's just extraordinary. I remember kind of, Lily Depp was getting all this praise for, the
Nosferatu.
The extent that she went to a Nosferatu. This is on another level.
On another level, right? Yeah. I think it's really, but brave is one word for it. Brave, impressive, bold, that she's like 57 years old. Yeah. And she's a really interesting figure, Nicole Kidman. She's not afraid to look her age. And in one particular scene, essentially full frontal nudity, close to it. Yes. You see a lot of her. She's put herself in an incredibly vulnerable position, and the character is doing so as well. The thing that I really like about the character, that I think is most interesting about her, is that constant vulnerability. Yes. Because despite the fact this is her fantasy, this is ultimately what she's always wanted, and she's finally getting to experience it. She's also incredibly scared the whole way through, and even though there's that talk of consent. And they have essentially agreed on it, although it's been a kind of, it's still kind of an agreement she's forced into a little bit. There is that threat that he, if you don't agree to this, I'm going to essentially make a move that will threaten to reveal this, which I'm not sure about. But they have had this kind of consensual agreement, this contract almost. She's never sure about it. You never go, right, I'm in like all fingers, all toes. I'm diving into the pool. She's constantly in a state of I don't know. Well, I don't know.
Well, because you get the feeling. I mean, that to me was fine because
I'm not complaining about it. I like it.
yeah. The film kind of explains that it's her first such relationship. So all those hesitancies, uncertainties, and so on, are understandable, right? I just would have liked to have seen kind of more of a progression and a development, and also to see it somewhat a little bit from his point of view as well, right? Kind of, because the thing is that you do get a sense of why he's attractive to her. I mean, he is physically attractive, right? And then also he is kind of bold and self-assured, right? But you get very little sense of what's happening in his head, of what he's feeling, of, kind of what's in it for him, really. And then I think he should have been filmed in such a way that we understand
what she sees.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
And instead, you have like this weird dance that he does at one point, where his body's on display, but what that is signifying to her.
What is the appeal in it? And you think the whole rest of the time he's doing nothing like that for her.
Yeah,
there's something more innate that she, that is the appeal for her. So that dance is like, if that's supposed to express some kind of, I get the appeal. Well, that's clearly not the central appeal for her.
Yes,
I think there are things, particularly early on, there are scenes that just kind of assume, maybe based on the genre, they just assume that we will buy into things that aren't being fully fleshed out. And essentially, I'm talking about the initial attraction between them. We do get this sort of spark of, he'll speak up in a scene where he's not really supposed to because they're just being introduced to the CEO. But, there's something with this guy. And then there is constant looks from long distances across crowded rooms that, I don't know about this guy, I'm interested. And you sort of see those. But then the transition from that into a sexual relationship is really quick. And I think it needs more.
And it's a missed opportunity because, it's a missed opportunity because they could have brought in kind of things of class and power. I mean, surely part of the attraction for him is that she's powerful and she's rich and she can do things for him. And that has to be, right? So I think all of that needed to have, like the film had the potential to kind of bring in all of those threads in a way that it really doesn't. And so it feels like thin and kind of rather hackneyed, really. And I think the only thing for me that saves it are Nicole Kidman's performance. I also liked seeing Harris Dickinson, though I'm not sure he was good.
I think he's well cast. He's an interesting casting. You can imagine so many different people in that role. You can imagine, Antonio Banderas 40 years younger.
Sure.
He'd be like, I'm here to have sex with you.
But my God, he would be so magnetic.
Right.
Yeah. And the thing about Antonio Banderas is you also always know what he's feeling and thinking.
Right, but I'm not talking about the quality of the performance though. Just in terms of the kind of the type of actor and the type.
He's well cast. He's attractive.
I think it's interesting.
And he's tall.
I think it's interesting to have someone who isn't immediately obvious an object of desire. He's not pretty or anything, but there's also something kind of weedy, kind of nerdy about him. You don't quite, but there's something else that's capturing her, and that's kind of that slight mystery to that is interesting, or at least I liked that decision.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I think I hated the whole family. I hated. That whole lesbian daughter having an affair kind of subplot. I thought it was completely unnecessary. And I'm not kind of sure what it's meant to add, except, to get a feeling, Nicole's a good mom and she's so woke and accepting of her. It felt really tokenistic and kind of terrible. And it didn't add anything, really.
No, I'm not so sure it did either.
So, yeah.
I didn't like the ending either. I felt a real letdown, actually.
Oh, I hated the ending.
Because what I want is, a breakup of the marriage. I want, it sounds mean. I just think this film needs a fucked up ending. And what we actually get is this wholesome reunion of the partners. And, he's going to try and give her what she needs, or what she, the kink that she's interested in sexually. And it's like, oh great, it's wholesome, it's nice. I don't want a nice ending. I didn't feel it at all.
No, I didn't feel that either. And neither did I feel her reasserting her power with the other executive, where he says, if I want to be humiliated, I'll pay someone to do it or something. In the meantime, fuck off.
When she comes to blackmail her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want a moment like that, but I want it filmed more powerfully. I don't know.
Yeah.
I want her like in full couture or something with diamonds slashing him, right?
Yeah. Well,
It just felt like...
You need to feel like the horns coming out, and all of a sudden, like, all the talons coming out. And
you need it visualized, really. And instead you get a wee little line, so...
Oh, no, sorry, yeah, I was completely the wrong scene. You're talking about the old fella who's trying to...
Yeah, the old fella at the end.
I was talking about the young exec who comes to blackmail her because the other one, the intern's going off with. That's the scene where I was saying, I want the horns to come out at that point, where she basically... Because the whole film she's been going, oh, yeah, we'll get to your promotion, yes, sorry about that. And then... At this point, she's like, okay, don't you fucking threaten me. But I wanted to feel it more.
Yeah.
But sorry, you're right about the scene with the old Sebastian.
Well, that's almost like the ending, right? Mm-hmm. So you want a moment of kind of reassertion or something. I didn't mind her staying with the family. Actually, I thought that because that could be really interesting, right? Like kind of, people in long relationships accommodate each other's wants and desires and find ways of staying together and keeping the family together and trying to make each other happy, right? Often, they find that they can't fully, and so Nicole might have to buy her humiliation. But that's okay. It happens outside the marriage, and it's a different type of thing than what she's been doing with Harris Dickinson. So I think it could have been more interesting and more complex, really.
Yeah,
and more better fiction, better audiovisual narrative fiction. I just think this wasn't very well made. It wasn't very well visualized. It wasn't very well written, right? It kind of, the only thing that it has going for it is Nicole Kidman and what seems on the face of it a sexy transgressive subject that isn't really.
No. The other thing that is interesting about Nicole Kidman as a figure in movies is that she made a pledge a few years ago to work with women directors more. I'm not sure.
Has done it.
Not sure exclusively, but more. And I was reading over the last 7 years, she's worked with 15.
I know, she's
women
incredible.
Directors. Like, she's fucking put her money where her mouth is. She's and
she's had enormous success doing so.
Yeah.
Because I think this isn't a safe film or a safe subject, and
no.
And she's done it on TV, and my God, she seems to have a series every 5 minutes, playing all kinds of roles, and very, very, very successful, right? I noted that her billing for this film is Nicole Kidman in Babygirl,
right,
and then with Harris Dickinson, and Antonio Banderas at the very end, you rarely get this kind of billing anymore, right? It's like Greta Garbo type of billing. It's Greta Garbo in, or Katharine Hepburn in. These are vehicles for women, right? The woman is the star, without a doubt. And I'm sure she's getting these roles written for her. She's a force. And as you said, she's interested in working with women directors. She's interested in working with auteurs. She's not... she's also interested in doing kind of glossy, kind of long-form television, action. I saw her in Lionesses. She's terrific in that. She's working with all the different types of talent. I forget what this guy's name is, but the guy who writes Yellowstone and...
Oh, I don't know.
Well, he is like the new TV auteur, usually associated with kind of Taylor Sheridan, I think is his name. Usually associated with westerns and kind of macho stuff. But like the hot name now.
Yeah. Hell or High Water. Made, and he wrote Sicario. Yeah.
And she did Lionesses to work with him. Yeah, she's somebody who's clearly kind of open and benefiting from that openness, really, of kind of associating herself with talent. But kind of, I'm sure this has paid off for her in the sense that. It kind of did all the rounds of festivals and It was nominated for all kinds of awards and so on, but I think it's a real failure of a film.
Yeah, yeah. It really does come down to her performance and the kind of role that it is. Like I say, it's the way that she looks, the way that she's filmed, the way that she's placed in those scenes. I mean, that scene where she's naked and he's not is a really remarkable one as well, I think, actually. And the thing that ultimately you get, because she's putting herself in such a vulnerable position in that scene, both the character and the actor. And then the resolution of that scene is not one of some sexual depravity. It's, you are beautiful and here's a hug. And it's like, and I did feel that, like, and that's an interesting bit of kindness from the intern character that well, I mean, there's that thing of that she says, like, you're sort of a magician and you know what people need, or you can sense and this, that, and the other. And that's the sense that you got in that moment, that's the way to handle her.
Sure, maybe. I don't know. I kind of, I'm not sure I like that either. I mean, Nicole Kidman is a beautiful woman, and she's married to a beautiful man, and they're both very successful, right? And they have beautiful children and so on and so forth. So I suppose everyone past a certain age wants a bit of reassurance. But actually, I also thought that this moment of disbelief, from Nicole Kidman as he tells her he's beautiful. I mean, Jesus Christ, come on, look at the body that she has. She must have been like working out every day since she's 15. And you see her getting the Botox. So, I think kind of...
Well, getting Botox isn't a sign that you believe you're beautiful. Sure, it's the opposite.
No.
It's a sign that you're terrified of...
No. I mean, lots of women who have had Botox and plastic surgery, they do think they're beautiful. That's what they get the Botox for, to end up looking like that.
No, but that's what I mean, is you got the Botox because you're insecure about your looks.
Well, you might get the Botox because you might need a little upkeep or whatever. Kind of, So, anyway, that moment, which is meant to be a moment of, like almost a Tennessee Williams moment, kind of, I just didn't buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, very unsatisfying film. And dull. I mean...
It is pretty dull.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I pretty much sound like I just wanted to watch a porn film. And, I didn't. I wanted to see, like, erotic cinema.
Yeah.
It's a different thing.
It is a different thing. And also I think I wanted to see an exploration of kind of, S&M power imbalances kind of across gender and age. And as an exploration of that, the film is very weak.
Yeah, like, I mean, I wasn't at any point expecting or hoping for a realistic exploration of BDSM and that sort of thing. But I was, I think, expecting and hoping for more, as I said, that 50 Shades of Grey fantasy. Like, it's about allowing yourself the fantasy of whatever you think is to be, whatever. Anyway, I'm not saying, like, it should have been that, necessarily. 50 Shades of Grey and whatever other things, they're their own things. But, I think that's kind of the other option. If you're either going realistic or you're going fantasy. And this hit neither of them.
What I ideally would have loved is one of those glossy, like, 1980s, Kim Basinger and what's his name, or Basic Instincts, or...
Adrian Lyne.
Yeah, that kind of sexy, glossy, erotic, So either you're that, or you're kind of a more serious exploration. The film provided the pleasures of neither.
Yeah. So disappointment.
Not to be too binary about it, but
disappointment. Like I say, when I see a film that's got an 18 rating, I'm hoping for my loins to tingle. Whether it's due to sex or violence or swearing, or whatever the fuck it is. And this didn't really.
I hadn't even noticed that it was an 18 rating, and I didn't care.
It's the most exciting rating,
but
because everything's a 15. Like essentially, it's the same thing in America. The higher the rating, the less money you'll make. And in America, the thing is the NC-17 is the rating where kids can't go in. All the other ratings you can, and so that's the one. If you get NC-17, you're fucked because you'll make no money off this film. And it's become kind of the thing over the last 20 or maybe 30 years in the UK that 18 is kind of a death knell.
Right.
I think it's seen similarly because it restricts who can see the film.
Sure.
So everything kind of tones itself down to get the 15 rating. which means that when you get an 18, you go, fuck yeah. You know, well, they haven't done that. And then it's a bit disappointing.
To be honest, I don't really care about any of that because, I mean, you know, when I was younger, the 18 films were actually hardcore pornography. That was the only thing that was kind of 18. And, you know, for generations before that, everything that the cinema showed was for the whole family. They didn't even have a 14 or 17. So, you know, I just think kind of cinema's capable of conveying everything, you know, without showing, you know, crude fucking.
But
so,
it's about what that rating signals, though. Like I say, it's not, you know,
yeah,
it signals that they haven't toned it down.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, when it comes to ratings, I do actually think, I think this is somewhere where America's got the right idea and we kind of don't, because the thing with our ratings is 12A, or used to be 12, and became 12A with Spider-Man in 2002, is you can't go in if you're under 12 unless you're with an adult. That's what the A bit is about. 15, you can't go in if you're under 15. 18, you can't go in if you're under 18. And in the US, like I say, you can go in with everyone. I think R18, you have to go in with an adult, but that you can take your kids in. NC-17 is the one where, like I say, that is genuine restriction. You can't go in. But because no film has an NC-17, like I say, it's a death knell, so everything is at most R18. You're essentially saying, you know, as an adult, you get to decide what your kids should see, right? It's on you, you know. And that's when the BBFC brought in 12A as opposed to 12. That's what they were saying. They were saying, we think this should be a 12 rating. If you have a good reason to think that your kids can handle this, should be able to see it, then take them in. But the fact that we still restrict 15 and 18 that way, I kind of think, why not give people more freedom? And on top of that, you'll watch anything on home media. I mean, I know.
I mean, my feeling about this rating thing is, you know, I pretty much always saw what I wanted, and my parents never knew about any of it, and that's maybe the way things should be.
But it's becoming kind of an irrelevance, isn't it? Because all of a sudden, I mean, now you have Netflix and streaming and God knows what else, all these streaming services.
I mean, you have porn available to everyone on your computer.
There is no restriction, and there's porn everywhere. And you go, why are we still restricting? You know. On the other hand, it was exciting when I was a kid to go into a 15-rated film when I was 14. It felt fucking transgressive.
Yeah.
You know, so I think kids do need those experiences somehow.
Sure.
So.
I mean, actually, I saw that Killer Elite was on television, the Sam Peckinpah film.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember that was like, I think the first R-rated film that I went to, and you know, and I wasn't even like 14 years, and I managed to get in.
So sneaking into something you're not supposed to be in is a thrill. But yeah, not this one. Probably not worth sneaking into. Although to be fair, if you're 15 and you're sneaking into this, you're gonna have a whale of a time.
I'm not sure that you are actually.
No, I'm probably not actually with all the porn.
But anyway, I suppose anybody who's a fan of Nicole Kidman really has to see it because she is truly great. But that is the only thing that the film has going for it, in my view.
Which is amazing for a film with Antonio Banderas.
Well, Antonio Banderas has a thankless part, and he is magnificent. I mean,
he's very good
as well. You know, kind of very few people would be able to carry that boring, thankless niceness throughout. Yeah. So, but you know, he's been a million times better, and he's had a million times better roles. But I think for Nicole Kidman, this is really one of the things that she'll be remembered for, and it's, well, maybe, or that she should be remembered for, and she might not be remembered for because it's such a bad film.
Feels like Banderas was cast in order to point out how bad the sex must be. Because you're going, if even Antonio Banderas cannot satisfy this woman.
Yes. No, for sure. I think that was definitely a part of it, for sure.
So yeah, unfortunately a disappointment.
Yeah, anyway, let's wrap it up here. So thank you all very much for listening. We're eavesdropping at the movies, and we are on
Apple Podcasts, Audible, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and YouTube Music. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter at Eavesdrop Movies, and Blue Sky, eavesdropping.bsky.social, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. The other thing that was fun about being a kid and getting around ratings was when I sort of first had a bit of money as a teenager, and then you were buying stuff off Amazon, and then you went, I'm going to buy, I don't know, I think I bought Reservoir Dogs, which was 18 rated, I think, or whatever the fucking film it was. I bought some 18 rated film, and they just send it to you, and I was like 15, because you've just bought like they're not going to check, you know. And it felt like a whole world had opened up. I can watch 18 rated films. I can buy myself, and you know, of course, as you say, it's just that's no consideration now. You just go on Netflix and put on whatever. You don't even notice what the rating is.
You see, I used to put on these huge platform shoes to make myself look taller, and then I would smoke and blow the smoke to the teller's face as I was asking for the ticket.
Really?
That was my technique.
That's just one step down from going in like a big trench coat on your big shoulders.
I had a uniform and I had a technique.
That's pretty good.
And I was successful. But though, whether I was successful or they just let anybody in is a different story.